This is what scares me about Edmonton's real estate market. So recently I attended the Edmonton real estate market forecast to kind of hear with what everyone's thinking is going to happen. So basically it was a gathering of minds to hear about everyone's little crystal balls and their predictions for Edmonton's real estate market and the Canada real estate market. So we heard from people that were politicians, we heard from our Edmonton Real Estate Board, so other realtor members, and we heard from the local government like City of Edmonton, Provincial Alberta, and also my favorite, the Canadian Real Estate Association also shared. And we're going to be looking and giving you opinions and sharing with you what Sean talked about and my opinions. And I love that he was so super opinionated. You know, I'm really opinionated, so we get along really well when I was listening to him talk. So in this video, I'm going to talk about what my forecast is, my crystal ball predictions for 2024. And first, before we dive into that, we need to talk about what happened in 2023. In 2023, we had what we call a normalizing market. That's what I call it anyways. And what's a normalizing market? We came off of a very crazy peak. We had the pandemic, we had high demands, we had very low interest, and we saw a massive change in our real estate market as we saw a bit of a boom. Now, normalizing is basically bringing things back to what Edmonton sees as normal, which is a 1% to 2% average price increase year over year. You don't usually see a huge spike in prices. You don't usually see a ton of multiple offers, and that's what makes Edmonton affordable. When you start to see activity like that, it starts to make things less affordable. Now, there's always the spring market that's busy. That doesn't mean when you have a busy spring market, you've become now unaffordable. But when it had been consistent for over 2 years of that kind of activity from January to December with no break, that definitely was what we considered the boom time. We also saw in 2023 the new build market come back to what I also call normal, because they were actually throwing out incentives, they were willing to negotiate. The trades time, all that unpredictability became less crazy and more predictable. Now, you know, and I know, if you buy a new build, there's always the unpredictable timelines. That's never been changed. However, when we had that boom, they had overcommitted to building homes, and so there was also supply issues. So you had a lot of issues when it came to timeline. But now we're seeing timeline become back to what we were used to. But honestly, why is the Edmonton real estate market scaring me now? Because we're no longer normalizing. In the last few weeks, in the first bit of this year, which is not a whole lot, it hasn't even been an entire month yet, we have seen the real estate market really pick up here in Edmonton. January is known to be quite quiet, and we are seeing multiple offers on properties that have been sitting for a long time that haven't sold. What is the hottest price point right now? Anything under $500,000. Honestly, people are even willing to go up to $600,000 and they're still not finding a whole lot. So when you take a look at between $300,000 to $600,000, the Edmonton real estate market has a very extreme shortage in that area. Whether it's resale or new build, buyers are having a bit of issues when it comes to finding homes. Now, if you take a look at my video from last week, when we looked at the Calgary and Edmonton real estate market, you'll notice that Calgary has an influx of sales from 6 to 900,000. Now, Edmonton's 6 to 900,000 is a lot slower, and we don't see that same activity, and that makes a lot of sense because people don't find 600K and over super affordable, especially when you have a family. Now, it's becoming the new norm because the average home price, if you want a brand new build, that's 2,000 square feet, you're probably looking at the low 600,000, depending on what you're looking for. You can still find things for mid 550s, but definitely expectations and the start prices are a lot higher than what they used to be. Here's the other thing. It scares me because we're starting to see such a heightened activity and all that stuff, but take a look at what Sean is saying right now about the Canadian real estate market in terms of housing starts. If you've got all those people coming in to Canada, we have a potential, well, he calls it a housing crisis. And so how do you solve a housing crisis? You need places for people to live. So let's watch what he's talking about here.
Into condos, apartments, and purpose-built rental apartments, okay? So the way I hear people and policymakers talk, it's like we haven't been building these things since the 80s. And you know what? We didn't build them in the 80s, 90s, or the early 2000s. But check that out. upstairs, that ugly, Excel chose that color. 34% of completions in the most recent data are purpose-built rentals. So when we look at the data and we look at our policy position and say, we need to build more of everything, where is that happening? Purpose-built rentals, that's it.
So purpose-built rentals, what does that mean? Those are properties being built to be rented. Now keep in mind this is for all of Canada, not just Edmonton. But you're seeing the problem here. We need to see more single-family homes being built, not more apartments being built. And that is why you're seeing people from Ontario and BC coming to Edmonton, because they don't want to live in an apartment with their family. They want to live in a proper home. Let's keep watching what he says.
And I think that there's sort of a cart horse problem here when you hear people say, well, we've got all these renters now, so therefore we need more rental stock. Well, maybe because you've been building a lot of rental stock, that's why you have more renters. But then you survey young people and new Canadians, and you say, do you aspire to own a home? And you know what they say? More than 90% of them say yes. So maybe we should have been building that whole missing middle, that's that sort of rainbow in the middle there, row homes and that sort of thing, which we talked a great game about, but my understanding is, I'm not an expert, but maybe someone in this room is, I'm sure, that the economics around building the type of housing that we need doesn't work.
Right, so this is just saying more about, and I completely agree with him, there is a missing middle, and a lot of the missing middle from Canada is coming to Alberta, and namely now Edmonton, because you can afford to get it. Now this is causing more demand in Edmonton's real estate market for single family homes. So you can see even why our condo market is starting to increase, because if people aren't able, they can't afford that home anymore, the condos in Edmonton are still way more affordable. But I have a whole nother opinion about that. Single family homes in Edmonton are still very much affordable. Now single family home doesn't necessarily mean a 2-story front attached garage. There are also homes that are called townhouses here that don't have condo fees. They don't have the issues of being condominiumized. They're like half duplexes. We have half duplexes, so that's one house sharing a wall. Townhouses are usually 3 or 4 in a row. The builders here have been responding to the market and trying to create product that allows people to afford a home at not the same cost. So the lot and land becomes cheaper because you're putting more houses on the same land. What I've also seen recently, which is a really unique product and I think is a great solution, are what's called these urban villages here in Edmonton. So I have these videos that we're going to be putting out so you can see what's the most affordable home in Edmonton. I really believe it's these urban villages. Now they look like they're in a condominiumized area because of how close everything is, but let's be honest, the zero lot lines here in Edmonton are already getting really close anyways. But this is great because you get included a brand new build, includes all your front and back landscaping, your fence fully done, and a brand new house for a very affordable price range, anywhere from the low 4s to the mid 5s, which is insane because that same house on its own lot as a zero is gonna be about 100K higher, or if you want a normal lot, it's gonna be 150K higher. So there are ways to get affordable homes here in Edmonton, so you can see why I am a big fan of where we live.
So this crisis is going to get worse in ways other than just a big mortgage payment. And so I think that this, and take an example right there, 30 to 35, because oftentimes people buy their first sort of family home, start a family. That decline in just 10 years is basically from around 60% to around 50. So when I talk about a 50% home ownership rate being haves and have-nots, for the young people entering into this space, they're already there. And I'm sure you talk to them all the time and they're not too happy about it. And I wonder to what extent we're going to have some real strong pent-up demand from these people coming off the sidelines and saying, this is my chance this year, especially if you're already, beyond.
So he's talking here about affordability housing. So in Canada, right now, our affordable housing rate is just sitting at the 64%, I believe he said. And that's really low. They want it at 70% home ownership, and we're at 64%, and it's dropping. The chart that he showed us is actually dropping. And so my concern about that is it continues to drop to, if it goes to 50%, I hope it doesn't. That's why he's saying that homeowners or potential homeowners can't afford a home. 50% of the population can't afford a home is not a great environment. He says it becomes a society of haves and have-nots. So I really think that when you look at Alberta proper, I would have loved to see that number, and Edmonton specifically, I believe our numbers are quite a bit higher than 64%. He is taking all across Canada, so he's counting BC and Ontario in there, which then puts us at a lower mark. And I do believe here in Edmonton, our percentages are quite a bit higher. I think they're still higher than 70%. People can still own a home. You don't have to buy that brand new build. You can still buy a house. And if you're realistic about entering the real estate market, you can buy a home in the $400,000 range. Just remember, it's not going to be your dream home. This is how you start home ownership. And as you build equity, as the house prices go up and your equity grows, you can take that equity and then buy the dream home in 5, 10, 15 years. That's what real estate used to be way back when I bought my first house, like how many years ago? 20 years ago, we bought, and we didn't buy our dream house. We bought the starter home, and then you build your way up, and then you build your way up, instead of just buying that dream home. That is something I think is lost on a lot of people. They forget that you can indeed build home equity. You can also do it by buying a home that nobody wants, which is the ones that need work. So if you're willing to do the work, that's where some deals can be had, because not a whole lot of demand is there. But those people still need to sell their homes, and they're not necessarily looking to put more money in because they're trying to get out. So you can see, based on some of the snippets of what he talked about in terms of affordable housing across Canada, and also what I've seen in the real estate market recently, and just also in the last 15 years, we are seeing, in my opinion, the forecast for 2024. We're definitely going to see an increase in price, in the average price in Edmonton. And the interesting thing is our Edmonton Real Estate Board predicted a 1.1 or 1.2% increase for average price, and I do not believe that's going to be true. I think we're going to see at least a 4% increase in the average price. I believe we're going to have, we're sitting around $492,000 as of last year as our average price, and I do believe the average price will be at $500,000 by the end of this year. I've seen our average price at $500 in the peak of our market, even all the way up to, I think, to $510 in 2022, and then it started to come down significantly so that the overall did not stay over $500,000. But I do believe our market is going to increase in terms of average price. 2024 is going to be a busy market. You're going to have to be strategic if you're buying and selling. It is possible. I also see a lot of demand this year, not just from population from Ontario, BC, but also people who live here locally. A lot of people who bought their home 5 years ago, your mortgage is coming up for renewal, your interest rate's not going to be what it was 5 years ago. And so now there's some consideration of, are we going to downsize? Are we going to upsize? Do we have enough equity that we can move? Are we going to stay? If you're going to stay, that doesn't give inventory for the new buyers to buy. If you're going to move, it's going to cause, yes, inventory, but then you're buying to live somewhere else. So you can see that there is going to be a lot of activity, I think, in the next 2 years, honestly, that there's all this pent-up demand too from people waiting and watching and waiting for the rates to drop, and now they are dropping a little bit. The prediction is this year is going to see quite a few rate cuts, but I do believe that we're not going to see as significant of a decline. We're not definitely going to go below into the 3%, and there's a lot of misinterpretation out there, so be careful where you're getting your sources from. When you hear about, ooh, it's going to drop 6 times by this many basis points, understand that that's not the actual interest rate you would be paying. This is Bank of Canada. The bond rates affect the fixed rate mortgages, right? So don't forget about that. The Bank of Canada rates affect the variable mortgages, and that's why it's important to talk to a mortgage broker who knows what they're doing and knows your situation, just like talking to a professional realtor is important to make sure we can navigate between your selling and your buying. So if you're a seller, a homeowner, and you're looking to stay in your home, great for you. And guess what? Your property's gonna go up. So that's good news for your home equity. That's not a bad thing. It's gonna go up. It'll probably go up again. So if you need that extra money for a home renovation later, you can pull that out when the rates drop and are more attractive to be grabbing a home equity line of credit. If you're looking to buy a home and enter, it is still possible. First-time home buyers, don't wait any longer. Just get into the market. Be more realistic. We're not going to buy that $1 million home in Edmonton, but a spoiler alert for all you people watching that are not from Edmonton, $1 million home is not what the average Edmontonian buys. So if you're trying to test the market and come here and then realize these -40 temperatures aren't for you in the winter, and then you want to sell that $1 million house, it's not going to sell as quickly or as much as you thought it was going to. People who buy these homes stay in their homes for a long time. They don't just buy it and flip it. And so that being said, if you're looking for that sweet spot in Edmonton, $500K is going to be that sweet spot. The average price is going to be the sweet spot. So if you're thinking about what's going on in the real estate market, you can see as an agent, I'm a little cautious in terms of, I don't want to be fear-mongering because I think it's really bad to buy a house out of fear because you got to get it now before everyone gets it. That's what always causes the problem. Let's take a moment and settle down, and let's logistically look at what is your situation, what is best for your family, what is best long-term, what are you guys willing to do. Just because the home is more affordable here, but all your family and friends are somewhere else, it may not be the best fit. So, or maybe you're gonna bring all your friends. We've seen that happen here too. So just sit down and just take a deep breath and navigate that real estate market no matter when it is, whether it's today, 5 years from now. We just can't go backwards. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you next time.